past this one spot and I saw a sign that said, you know, if you're tired, pull over. And I keep seeing these signs, and you know, I've driven for 35, 40 years, and I didn't really pay attention. I got a little drowsy for a second. I thought, oh no, I'm okay, fine. And all of a sudden, I must have dozed off because I hit the barrier, and it woke me up. I was doing 90 at the time, so you know, the barrier took the whole side of my mother-in-law's car out, basically, scraped it all the way along the side, and obviously it shook up my family a little bit, and it shook me to the point of. You know, I wasn't shaken up myself, but I was shaken up with the fact that what I could have done to my family. So remember, if you are driving anywhere, please be aware that if you get a little bit tired, just pull over. I mean, it happened to me once before, many, many years ago, when I was driving from Munich to Italy. And I dozed off for a little bit. I felt that, and I pulled over and I slept for 15, 20 minutes. That's all it took, 15, 20 minutes rest. And at that point, I was fine. So I should have done that. I should have said, okay, let's just take it over for now. But everybody else was sleeping. And I think sometimes what ends up happening is when you're sitting there on your own and you're sleeping, then, you know, it's you kind of then just don't have anybody to talk to or react to. So you go off. So be aware of that. If you do drive, make sure that you take your naps at the right time. Now, another question I got was, we're traveling to Croatia. Was that because it was less heat in the south of France? No, it was actually as hot, if not hotter, in Croatia. You know, because that was, you know, I'm just trying to see some of these messages that are coming through here right now. It's weird because I'm actually sitting here in a hotel room and I'm just looking at these messages. It's a little different than, as I said, we've normally been able to do, because I've got people everywhere. We weren't able to, I'm just looking at the messages I'm getting from everywhere. I've got people in the States and here working this live for us, but so just bear with us for this particular one, because as you can tell, I'm not on the right location. So we've set all this up in my hotel room. Anyway, Croatia basically was a beautiful country. The sea is stunning. Snorkeling was amazing. My kids loved it. The only thing I didn't like quite as much in some places was the stony beaches. You know, I like the sands personally. There were some very stony beaches, but you know, the water was made up for it, and the food was good. I didn't have one of the things you've got to try if you go to Croatia, and that is the calamari. The best calamari I have ever had was at a little airport, which is in Vasar. It's VSAR. You can look that up if you want. It's a tiny little place, and there's a little airport there for private planes to come in there, you know, the small Cessnas, etc. And it has a little restaurant, and they did this calamari in garlic that was stunning. I didn't get that this time in the others. They were more fried, and I think I ate more calamari and octopus, which I don't really want to eat this trip, and fish. I had some very good fish, but it wasn't as tasty as that one, but it is very, very good. Obviously, I don't eat meat, so in some places there's a little restrictive as to how you, how and what I eat. So, you know, today we're going to do things, as I said, a little differently. We're going to actually bring some sword fights into it a little later in this thing. If you have any questions, you know, please feel free to ask them. We'll try and see if we can answer them on this. I've got a phone by the camera here. I've got my operator, which is my son, actually, Royce. He's actually working the live sections for me, so you can tell him and tell me how we did at the end of this session. A lot of people, a couple of questions, other questions we've had, pre-questions, and I've got a slew of them today, so I'm going to run through some of these pretty quickly. Somebody wanted to hear about the last battle in Rob Roy. Rob Roy was a great sword fight at the end there, not because of the technical spinning and anything else. It was because of the sheer reality it had in the way it was presented. And I think sometimes we forget that sword fights are messy. They're not these beautiful choreographed numbers. And so I think they can look amazing, they can be spinning, etc. But that particular fight, the Rob Roy fight, to me had a lot of conversation between the two fighters. I think it was about, you know, how the one character behaved, how the other one looked at it. You can see how Rob Roy was a little scared, kind of believing he'd lost the battle at the very end, and you could see that the dynamic between the two characters, and that really was what we were watching in that fight, and that's why I think it's such a great fight. You know, really, it's the only real one-on-one fight in there. There's a few other sword fights that are quick, but that's really the one that everybody remembers. And again, not because it's so technically challenging, it's because it was a great sword fight between the people. So, and I've talked about this before, so I'm going to get on to the next question very quickly. Bokens. Let's talk about sword experience. Bokens very quickly. Obviously, we do events everywhere. A lot of the events we do, we do long sweeping, how can I put it, moves, rather than these very quick technical ones. And that's because it's hard to teach the technical, very quick technical moves to people that do not have the experience to do that. But that said, the bokens we use are heavy. They would be like a normal Iaido bow that, or not bow staff, but a weapon that will be used. But we use them slightly differently. However, everybody's very happy with what we've got. I actually have some that are made that we're going to be giving to the people in the next couple of days, and in our Ireland event, that are made. And somebody asked, how are those bokens are made? Are we ever going to do a video on how those are made? Yes, I think it's a good idea. We hadn't really thought about that, to be honest, and I think it's a good idea to kind of show you the work that goes into it, how we choose the wood, how we actually created the molds for some of the handles. Other handles actually are wrapped, so they're very different types of manufacture that goes in with those. And very soon we are going to be releasing our aluminum blades, and we will be running a contest and giving away one of those blades, and we want to have some fun with it. So you'll get the first dibs on that. Being an inner circle member, you'll get the first dibs on what that is going to be. So I'm going to just look at a text message now to see if I actually get those text messages coming through. So those particular things that we do are chosen specifically because I want to keep a fairly decent quality with the stuff that we offer. Listen, sometimes it's, you know, we are testing the waters as to what you guys want and what's going to look good and sell well. Same as choosing places for the sword experience to go. We have to make sure that it is going to be worthwhile for you guys as well as us to actually bring the sword experience to a space. That said, we have a very low number here in Leeds this time because we were testing something we want to do for next year, which is a tour. But that's okay, because tomorrow they're going to get kind of a private training on this, not a very small group, but anyway. So we're testing different things that we can offer. And a question somebody actually asked was, what qualities do I value in the person? What qualities do I value? I think honesty is one of them. And I think the one thing I always believe that you have to have is, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If I say, it's like my wife says, don't make empty promises, or empty threats to my kids. I said to my son yesterday, because him and his sister were fighting in the car, and after like 3 hours of hearing it, I was like, okay, enough. And then they kept on, and I said, look, if you want to go to England and you want to come with me on this trip, make sure you stop right now, because otherwise, and she said, don't make an empty threat. I said, no, I'm not going to make an empty threat. I will carry that through, and I will do that. And so I think that's important, that you're a man of your word or a woman of your word, that you say you're going to do things, and that honesty is, I can value that. doesn't mean everybody's going to do that. And I think you have to be aware of that not everybody lives up to your own code of honor or your own code that you're going to do things, especially in business. A lot of the time we actually, look at things thinking that everybody's going to behave honorably the same way we do, and yet they don't. So, and we're surprised when they don't. Different cultures have different ways of doing business, and what they value as doing good business is different than other countries. So be aware of that as you do business in other countries. All right, another question. How are sites chosen for the Sword Experience Live? Well, to be totally honest with you, most of our Sword Experience Live events are, they are green screen. Here, this one is hotel room. It's the one I can actually get a decent light and be able to get all the quality that I want to get out. And as I said, this live is going to be slightly different than most of the others that we've had. So we basically want to give a slightly different feel to them as we go through them. Different questions. We're trying to come up with a different type of look on things, and I think you'll be happy with this one, because this one, we've been running now for 20 minutes. So I think what we're probably going to do is we're going to go to the first clip that we've got. Now I'm going to talk to you about that clip before we run it, because it's a series from the Witcher series. Now the Witcher series, a lot of people have talked about him being the successor to Duncan MacLeod or Connor MacLeod in the new Highlander film, and people are always saying, well, would he be good? Would he not be good? Would it be this? I always take people at what they can do. In the Witcher series itself, it's a very, it's obviously already has a following, and the sword work we're going to look at in a second. We're going to talk a little bit about it, because this was we picked the very first sword fight that was in there, the end fight in it, and we picked it because it had some very interesting technical stuff, and I want to sort of pick it to see what you guys liked and what you saw in it and what I saw in it, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to take from it, as well as there's some technical aspects and some filmic aspects that go well hand in hand. So let's just run that now and see how. So let's just hold it there for a second. Now, obviously, a lot of the time, what we have is that people don't necessarily come face to face. This type of moment that they have here is very filmic. Most of the sword fights happen and they move on. But we need to see what the relationship is. Now, I like their relationship. I actually liked her in it. I liked his relationship in it, which he's more the stoic type that doesn't let on anything. She's more aggressive and is moving this fight forward. But that said, he has a much larger weapon, which in a second we're going to talk about how he actually utilizes that weapon. So let's move this forward. Let's see the continuation of this. And this is the moment where it's his decision whether to fight her or not, and she's trying to push it even further by doing that. Now he's got these strikes here. Let's hold it there for a second. The rear block that he had is an interesting block. People said to me a long time ago, well, that block behind like this would never happen. Well, to be totally honest, whatever works. And the one thing he has in this, in a technical, historical view of his sword fight, the sword that he has is slightly shorter than a historical long sword, but it's also, he's using it two-handed. And he uses it on a reverse hand grip. Now, a lot of the time, the reverse hand grip is not useful with longer weapons, because it basically reduces your distance between you being able to attack that person. If you're in a tighter space, you can use it with two hands, and with a shorter weapon, of course, you can also use it to get in and over and create more force over it. I'm not so sure it works in this aspect for the technique, if you like, whether it would be used in this. I know that the reverse weapon was also used on horseback, but I think it's an interesting look that was created. Now, again, when you're creating a choreography for this type of fight, I don't think you necessarily are looking at it from, okay, let's be totally technical with it. You want to give the audience some pleasure of watching the dialogue that goes between them in the sword action. So let's continue and see where we go with on this particular. So, you know, this was I thought it was an interesting fight. I liked the fights here. They were tough. They were strong fights. You know, they were technically interesting, but also visually interesting. Obviously there's a lot of special effects that are used now, and some of the things we did, we couldn't do some of this stuff here because some of this is also done with some CGI.